When you work as a VA in the way that I do with like business admin and lifestyle services, it's per hour. And so there's only enough hours in the week for you to survive and keep sanity. So I didn't want to leave the money on the table. So I was like, how do I do this? And that's when I learned about doing like subcontracting.
Mel Maw, the Lifestyle VA. Welcome to Rad-Ventures, the podcast that takes you on an exhilarating journey through the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mel.
Hello. Okay, well, I'm Mel, obviously. I run something called the Lifestyle VA Agency, and it's basically a agency that provides lifestyle and business support, like part-time, for business owners. And specifically, we look after 6- and 7-figure CEOs, and just to give them back their time, their joy, their sanity. And I'm a geek, so it's my way of using my organisational skills to look after people, and I've been doing this now for about 6 years, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, nice. So I know that you've got quite an interesting story because I've listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast. I've seen a few of your bits on Instagram, and Threads is how we actually connected.
Love Threads.
Yeah, I wasn't really into it when it started. Well, when it started, I thought give this a go because of the natural reach that everyone was getting. Mm-hmm. And then it was a bit like Twitter, and I didn't really know what to say, and I was a bit like, I'm eating cauliflower for tea. Who else is or something, And I was like, I'm not very good at this. So I kind of abandoned it, and practically for a year to the day. And then with the launch of this podcast, I thought, I'm going to go back on Threads, see if you can get some, traction on some stuff. And actually, I found that now they got like podcast threads, and they've got like
it's so good
admin threads, and I was like, this is really good now. Know, in the beginning it was a bit kind of what's
everyone was
going
just
on
throwing
here?
Spaghetti at a wall with it in the start because everyone was like, what do I say? Who am I? What's the best thing to say or do or follow? And now everyone's settled in, and they're like, this is a cool place to be. It's really relaxed.
Yeah, I do like it, and you get speak to so many different types of people. All you have to do is like something, and all of a sudden they're like messaging and like, oh hey, thanks for the like. What do you do? And you're like, oh okay.
Yeah, it's really good
not
for connection.
Like the other ones. Yeah, I love it.
The no-nameables.
Yeah. Go on then, quickly. What's your least favourite social network?
Instagram.
Oh no.
The only reason I say that is I've got a business that predominantly finds clients on LinkedIn and by word of mouth and by my email marketing. So I was a business coach up until January this year, and I stopped doing that so I could focus on the agency. And I just kind of then binned off Instagram and didn't have to do it so much because it was all of the written stuff. And obviously recording a podcast on something like what we're using, Riverside, it gives you the clips, and I just simply use this entire podcast recording as content, and it's an email, and it just becomes written, and it's so much less. I don't have to be like pointing at things on a Instagram reel or slicing together videos and sitting staring at my phone for 12 hours a day. So I really like not being on Instagram so much.
Oh, see, Instagram's like my favourite place to be. I don't know why, but because like you say, it is hard work. And actually, when you just said that, I thought, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it is. It depends what you like, though, because if you're creative, it's a really great space because you can be creative. And don't get me wrong, I love a doom scroll down the Discover page. That'll be me. 6 o'clock at night when the day's done, I'm like, oh, switch my brain off, scroll.
You don't do that at 6 o'clock, do you? That's 4:30.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, caught out. Cool. Right, so you said you've been in business for about 6 years. And this is where I was going with this before I got sidetracked with social networks again. So I know you've had an interesting story before that. Now, let's talk about that a little bit later. Let's start, as we always do, at school, in your later years of school, when you're thinking about what you're going to do for the rest of your life, quite unfairly, I think. But what did young Mel want to do then?
Get the hell out of school. I'm a classic case. So I was desperate to get out of school in any way possible because I was bullied so much. So it was miserable. So I actually left school at 16 and I scooted off to college. When I was at school, little me was like, I want to work in the zoo. of all things. And then it was a case of what can I do that gives my brain a break? And I have to continue. The deal was if I leave school at 16, I have to go to college for 2 years because my parents were like, no. I was like, fair enough. So I went and did photography and design and thought I'm going to be a photographer, you know, but I wanted to be a photojournalist. So, you know, taking like documentary style photos, and I was really good at black and white photography. And then I ended up doing the journalism thing. So I ended up wanting to work in a zoo but ending up in the music industry. Which is a really weird path. So yeah, so little me was like zoo to music industry. It's perfectly normal, right?
Well, you could argue that there are a few animals in the music industry.
Even probably more than in a zoo, if I'm honest, having been through it.
Yeah, yeah. You set them up, Mel. I'll knock them down.
But it was a good. I mean, it was brilliant. It was a wild ride. I think I spent 10 to 12 years in the music industry behind the scenes, and I think that gives you a grounding to be able to deal with anything and anyone, because it's pretty mental at the best of times.
Okay, so so was that like music journalism? Did you work for like a paper magazine kind of thing, that type of stuff?
That's how I started. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to be a journalist, and then I realised that, you know, they were going, we'll pay you 2p a word. I was like, oh God. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't actually know how I'm going to make this pay. And I was doing loads of internships. I'd had a couple of paid bits of work, and I was beginning to see that the life of a journalist was a very poor life. Creatively wonderful, but very poor. And so I'd ended up interviewing a guy who ran this kind of event for young people. It was called the Urban Music Seminar at the time. And I loved that he kind of opened the doors to like what the industry really was. Beyond just being a singer or an artist, it was like, what can you do as an executive or a talent scout? And there were panels, and I interviewed him, and he ended up giving me a job, I think on a New Year's Day of all days. He was like, come into the office at 10 o'clock on New Year's Day. And I was like, can you make that 12? I'm going to be in no condition. And yeah, I started that day with him, and I just shadowed this man who managed artists, managed producers, ran this event. And I was with him for about 3 years, and we travelled all over the world, literally from the day I started. He was like, right, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to the south of France for a conference in Nice. And I'm like 19 going, what is happening? So it was really, I mean, my horizons just broadened from the like little town that I grew up in. And it was an absolute wild ride. So then we were managing artists and producers and songwriters and walking into record labels and doing deals. It was a bit of everything versus working for like a big record label and just having like one position. So I had done a lot of things in the music industry within a couple of years. It was pretty wild.
Oh, cool. So, and is that where you were before you transitioned to what you do now, or?
No. So I've got a squiggly path for sure. So
I love a squiggly path.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's ever linear and normal, is it? So I worked in the industry. I ended up in that job for a few years, and then I got a job in New York for a year, which was even more mental. So many stories that aren't even safe to tell these days. And then I came back home and started my own like music PR business. As I said, so many things. And then every time I kind of came out of an industry job and there wasn't one like waiting for me, I would go back into being an assistant because it was good money. I knew how to organise, because that was basically my first job with that guy. I was his assistant. And so and especially when you're in the music industry, there's so many different people and threads that you're having to like manage and balance all the time, and personalities and all sorts. So I was really good at like cat herding with people and organising. So I would do the EA jobs in between because it was good money, really easy to do for me, for the way my brain worked. And so my health kind of just wasn't right. And so I was just taking these EA jobs to get by. And then eventually, after I think 2 years of fighting with the doctor, we found out that I had something really wrong with me. My spleen, which is one of your bits of your immune system, was meant to be the size of a kiwi fruit, and it had blown up to the size of like a grapefruit, and it needed to be surgically removed. And it was a huge open abdomen surgery. And so after that, I was like, right, I can't deal with the music industry. It's 100 miles an hour. Nobody's called me while I'm sick. It's quite a brutal industry, and I think I'm kind of outgrown it now. And so then I went back into just being an EA, and I was PA to the chairman and CEO of Paper Chase, really lovely British brand, for about 5 years. Okay. And then I was like, I want to do more. Like, I was ready. My health was good again. I was ready. And that's probably the bit that you know from my podcast is I went, right, I'm going to take a sabbatical. And I just at 37 had a midlife crisis and went to Bali for a year. That's how the business was born, in that year in Bali.
Nice. Yeah, there's quite a bit to unpack there. And one thing I thought of when you said that the music business is quite brutal, I used to work with a guy, and he wanted to get into music. In fact, I think he helped with the producer of a song for Shaggy.
Brilliant.
And one of his something happened. I don't know what it was, but then all of a sudden he's not doing music anymore.
It's just an industry where back in the day the rules didn't apply. And there was the women were in the minority as well. So all of the stuff is coming out now about how, I mean, I could tangent on this, so I'll try and keep it on track. But just in brief, it is I think it's got a lot better since I left. I've seen so many more women coming through, so many female executives. The game has changed because, you know, the Me Too movement brought up a lot of stuff that we can no longer tolerate. So there's so much change has happened for the better. But I was kind of in the Wild West, you know, between 19 and 22, and it was pretty mental.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, let's not dwell on that too long. It's an important subject. But happy podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad to be out of it, and I never thought I'd actually be like happy to leave the music industry. But it's like I've got more of a life now than I did when I was in the industry, which is more important to me now.
Yeah, I'm sure TV's not dissimilar, is it? I suppose.
But completely.
So this year in Bali, then. So you're off on sabbatical. You're touring Bali, and you're thinking, what should I do with my life? How did you come up with you're going to be a VA?
So I've always done more than one job, right? I've always had like a side hustle or something else. I'm not afraid of hard work. I never have been. If the bills are going to be paid, I need to find a way to make the money. And when I took off on a 3-month sabbatical, I was meant to come back to the job in January, and I took off in like the August, September. And within, I think, 4 weeks of being away, I basically met a bunch of digital nomads, and when they learned that I was kind of executive assistant role, they were like, why aren't you a VA? I was like, a what now? I didn't even know it existed. I'd been an EA on and off for so many years, and I'd never really heard of the VA world, the virtual assistant world. And so it was all the digital nomads who were like, oh, you mad? You can earn a lot of money, work on your own terms, choose your clients, have flexible working, and you can even do it from here. And I was like, ooh. So I started to look into it. And then curiosity got the better, and I found my first client on the island, a Swedish girl, I think. And I started the business, and I thought, well, hang on a second. On the side back home, I was selling a house privately for a private client. And so that commission from the house meant that I had enough in my savings to extend the sabbatical. So I basically took the leap and quit the day job while I was out there. And my boss was absolutely brilliant. He was just like, on video call, he was like, well, he said, I thought this would happen. I was like, how did you know? I didn't know I was going to do this. And he was like, well, you know, we've only got one life to live and we should all be doing more of this. And I was like, you're brilliant. I love this man. So he was like, go, have fun, go on. And I was like, oh, okay, that's my resignation then. Thank you, bye.
I love that. You know, some bosses are really like, out you go spread your wings and fly, aren't they? And they know that you're above your, you've got more in you.
Yeah.
And some bosses are like, you know, you must stick with us
work
forever.
You to the bone.
And how dare you think about leaving us? I mean, I've had both. I've had one boss that was like, I worked in catering for a while, which is where I got my juggling skills for herding cats, as you put it. And so one of my bosses there, I said to him afterwards, he said, oh, what are you doing now? I said, oh, I'm just doing a accountancy qualification. And he's like, oh, good, yeah, we always knew you were a bit beyond catering. I was like...
But they don't tell you that until you tell them you're about to do something else, and they're like, oh, yeah, we knew. And you're like, you could have encouraged me that way before, no?
Yeah, this was like years afterwards, and, I saw him in the street or whatever, and he's like, oh, and I was like, oh, you could have told me like 4 years ago when I was employed that you thought I could have gone that way. 'Cause he was a bit of an entrepreneur himself. But there you go. Okay, so you're in Bali, you've set up your VA business. And so, presumably, I don't think you're in Bali now, so you've come back
No.
at some point.
Yeah, so I spent a year out there and I got a little homesick because no one really stays on the island for very long. So it's quite transient. And as you're setting up and, you've only got yourself to rely on starting a business, is quite scary, as any VA will know. It's quite risky and it's quite lonely. And so the friends that I had sort of just kept leaving, and eventually I was like, this is really tiring. And bear in mind, at this point I'm 37, 38. So, I'm not a spring chicken and everyone around me is. They're like 20-year-old backpackers. So there was a part of me that was like, I need to come home, I think, and have a dose of family. And I had just gotten rid of a bunch of disastrous clients, because when you're new, you tend to just take anyone on. You go yes to the cash because it means I can stay afloat and do this. And you just ignore all of those red flags, so many red flags. And so I just, for the sake of my sanity, got rid of a few. So the business wasn't churning enough for me to book the flight back to Bali. So this was like, I think in the September of 2019. And then I was like, right, in the spring, I'll go back out. And then, the pandemic hits and no one's going anywhere. So I then was stuck in London. London felt like pretty full on after living on a tiny little island with little supermarkets for so long. So my family all lived down on the south coast. So eventually, after a year in London, I was like, right, I'm going to come down. And everyone was like, great. And I was like, no, but it's just boring down there. Now I love it. Now I'm buying a house down here with the love of my life. So, everything has its time, I guess.
Nice. I live on the south coast, a bit further down from where I think you are.
Yeah.
And I'm not originally from here, as you may have detected with the northern twang. But I do feel like, even though I'm about a mile away from this inland, kind of in a peninsula where I am, so the sea both sides of us. But I just feel like, free and open.
Yeah.
Whereas, as soon as I drive in north, it's not in north, in country.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut that bit out. As soon as I drive a little bit in country, I just think, oh, it's enclosed, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And, there's just land for miles and miles. I don't like it.
No, being by the sea is brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, it is great stuff. Whereabouts are you then?
I'm down in Worthing.
Oh, okay. So, it's Sussex way.
Yeah, Sussex, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm like down Dorset way.
Oh, I love it down there. Beach is much nicer.
Yeah, we got a sandy beach in Weymouth because it was all imported in the 90s, so from the Middle East, all lovely golden sands, much better than those rocks and stones from further up. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we digress. Cool. So, obviously, as VAs, we can work from anywhere. All we need really is a mobile phone, a laptop, and a few apps or a couple of apps. Yeah. But I'm interested in how you've transitioned from a VA to now six-figure business. Agency is the word.
Yeah. That's
Tell us about that.
So I'm, as you can tell by the things that I've done before, the Americans when I lived in New York called me a hustler, which I was like, is that a compliment? I think it is. It just to them meant you're a hard worker, you've always got something on the go, and not loads of crazy schemes. Like I would do something and then I would like back it up with like a second job so that was earning, enough money to survive. So because of that, I came into like my first year in business, and when I got back into the UK, I was like, I'm getting leads coming my way that I just don't have the time capacity to handle. Because when you work as a VA in the way that I do with like business admin and lifestyle services, it's per hour. And so there's only enough hours in the week for you to survive and keep sanity. So I didn't want to leave the money on the table. So I was like, how do I do this? And that's when I learned about doing like subcontracting. So having associates do the work for me and taking that client on. And they take the bigger cut and I take the lesser cut. And that's how it works. And so I launched myself into that. I hired a friend, which I 10 out of 10 don't recommend. Don't do that. We no longer speak, to say the least.
Uh-oh. Hashtag orcs.
Yeah, just she wasn't going to be like a long-term EA, but she promised me that she was going to stick around for long enough. And she rode off into the sunset with my client. So that was fun. No. So yeah, there's just such a big learning curve in terms of hiring people, even if they're contractors, in just get a contract, have confidentiality agreements, have clauses where they can't walk off with your client and all sorts of things. So with anything, you have to do things the wrong way to then get them the right way. So it was a huge learning curve. And now there's, I'm going to count my team members, six going on 7 team members now. And it ebbs and flows with the clients. Like some clients stay for a long time, some stay for a short term. But the core team, I'm just so flipping grateful for. They're amazing at what they do, and they keep my clients happy. And I technically no longer do any of the day-to-day VA services for the client. So I could just focus on like the people, because the people actually is quite a lot in terms of keeping the clients happy, keeping the team on track. And there's a lot of management behind the scenes for sure.
Nice. So are your associates all UK-based ones?
They are. I've got 2 that work from South Africa. One is an expat, one's a South African. But because there's only like 1 to 2 hours maximum, 2 hours a certain time in the year, but 1 hour difference, that really works. But yeah, 90% of the team are based in the UK, all over the place.
Okay. Cool. Because I mean, obviously, I am in the freelance admin / virtual assistant business myself. When I'm not podcast host or fellow podcast host to you, so I know a little bit about it. And one guy I spoke to recently, he set up an agency using VAs from over east. I can't remember if it's the Philippines or Malaysia. But essentially, they kind of did him dirty in that he didn't know that 2 of them were a husband and wife team, and they set up. They robbed all the clients basically because they were the managers, robbed them all, and took everything.
Oh no!
So it was kind of a bit like, oh, so.
That's really tricky. That's really tricky because I don't know whether under like UK contract law you have any rights with someone who's contracting out of a different country. It's very difficult.
That's it. I mean, majority of contracts have England and Wales at the bottom, don't they? So, because even as far away as Scotland, the laws are different.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You've got to be so careful.
Yeah, cool. So, let's have a look then at the quickfire questions, and then we'll talk about your podcast.
Okay.
Because that's another avenue of how you've transitioned and hustled, as the Americans in your life have said to you.
Yeah.
All right, so quick fire questions then, just for you, because the listeners / watchers will have experienced these before. I designed to break up the show a little bit, get to know Mel, and incorporate the world of admin, which obviously with us both being in the same field, we're probably going to deep dive into these, which means that they're not going to be that quick. But we'll see how we go. I'm not going to set the stopwatch or anything. We're just going to go into it and see where we come out to. Okay. So, first question then, and before I ask it, you've hinted about your age already, but we know that you aren't a day over 21.
There's a heavy wink, listeners, that you gave me.
Yeah. That was for the benefit of the YouTubers, but thank you for the context for Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Oh, I love it.
And Anchor. Or RSS feed. Anyway, so what has been your favourite age so far, Mel?
I actually think it was turning... I think both decades. Turning 30, because I just went, I no longer give a crap what anyone thinks. I'm just comfortable in my skin and in myself. And then I think the same turning 40 2 years ago was the same, because everyone goes, oh my God, it's terrifying to be this old. And you just sort of think the only people that are unhappy at their age changing are the ones that feel like they aren't where they're meant to be or thought they would be or haven't done the things that they want to do. And I've tried my whole life, especially after the health scare, to do everything in my power to enjoy life as much as I can. So yeah, I like the turning of the decades. I'm not sure about the one that's coming up, the 50, but I've got 8 years to have a panic attack about that.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm 39 at the end of this month, and I am like, oh, there's a big 40 looming over me at the minute.
It's just a number.
But everyone says life begins at. And actually, this makes me think back to earlier in the show when you were talking about all the 20-year-old backpackers in Bali.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I say, I'm nearly 39, but for me, I feel like I'm like, I don't know, 24 maybe. But
that's it. So do I. I think you mentally stop at your best age, whatever it was in your like youth or something. So maybe I'm like 32 in my brain or something. I don't know.
And well, I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and coming up 13. But in in past years, not so much so now. She's more interested in being upstairs in her room, listening to Spotify and whatever they do up there. But in the past, she'd be like, "Oh, Dad, can we do this?" And it's like a painting thing or something. I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! That needs adult supervision. We got to wait till Mum to get home." But then, saying that though, when I interact with 22, 23-year-olds, oh my God,
painful. It's painful. Not everybody. We won't tell them all with the same brush, but it is painful because the lack of eye contact and the lack of phone contact is like. It's a lot.
But it's also, and obviously this isn't everyone, but it's they seem very naive, lacking in life experience, but they all look older than we do.
Yes. It's a strange generation coming up, and it terrifies me all at the same time. There's a 9-year-old in my life now with my partner, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared for her.
Yeah, it is crazy, and I do wonder about it. I mean, mine's not too bad. She's on the cusp of the old Gen Z, Gen A. 2012 she was born. And obviously with a weirdo like me for her dad, she's picked up some of the cool traits. But, at least she doesn't say, like, skibbity, whatever it is, skibbity toilet riz, that's it. She doesn't say that, but sometimes she will come out with, the old Gen Z sayings, like, "Oh, yeah, me and such a person, I shipped them." I'm like, "You what them?" She's like, "I shipped them." I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And she's like, "I suspected that they like each other." I'm like, what? Shipped?
Oh, I can't keep
How does
up
that
with
work?
it. I sound like my mum now. I can't keep up with it.
I know, but you're saying that. I was watching California Man over here. In America, it's called Encino Man, a film with Brendan Fraser where he's defrosted caveman. Okay. And in that, they're sat around the dinner table. It's a proper 90s film, and he's giving it all the old. I can't remember any of them now, but there's a comedian in it, a well-known comedian, and he comes out with these amazing sayings. And you watch that now, and you think, yeah, I bet that's what like the generation before were like when they were listening to that. Of course, I was the next one in the 2000s and stuff. So, we didn't have cool phrases back then.
No.
Right, let's move on to question 2.
Okay.
Okay, this one's one of my favourite ones. So, what is your favourite quote? This could be a movie quote, a meme, or a motivational quote, or another quote.
Oh, you've asked me the hardest question. Do you know what comes to mind? I need to get it right. It's a Brené Brown quote. It's sort of how to walk through life, and it's something, I'm going to butcher it, forgive me people, but it's something along the lines of strong back, soft front, wild heart, something like that. Someone can send it in and correct me, but it's just walking through life with kind of this, strong armor on, but not the kind of armor that covers your heart as well. So you're a little bit of wild, a little bit of soft, a little bit of, that hard warrior-ness to you. So it's a combination of all of those things as you walk through life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And this podcast, the Rad-Ventures, we don't fact-check things. People feel free to write in, increase my engagement.
I used to have it on a Post-it on my wall, and it was so faded that I've scrumpled it up a couple of months ago and took it down. I forgot about it.
The problem with Post-its is they're messy, aren't they?
They do look messy, yeah.
They stick around, and then you kind of, oh, what was that one? Oops. Post-its were out for me after about 3 months of being full-time self-employed. It was like, no more Post-its, and then it was like sticky notes on the computer or, a desk pad with the writing on. Right, let's just grab question 3. Normally I have my iPad on the side, but I didn't bring it down and it's got no charge on it, so I'm having to use my phone for my document of prompts.
Love that.
Okay, so, this one's good. Google Suite or Microsoft 365?
Google Suite, 100%. I hate Microsoft. It gives me corporate trauma vibes.
I was going to say, what? How can you hate Microsoft? That's what you would have grown up with, being a similar age to me.
Yeah, and then someone says...
But then you say corporate trauma, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Outlook's not working, call IT, and, everyone's sending you different versions of a frickin' Microsoft Word document when you can just Google Suite, share document, see edits in real time. Like, I love the sharing and live editing capacity. That makes my life so much easier. That it's just, and Dropbox makes me want to vomit, but some people like it, some clients like it, and we work with all clients. Like, we have a preference in the business, but we'll use the systems that our clients use. But yeah, Google all the way just seems better, and I'm sure Microsoft is better these days, but I don't want to touch
it. Yeah, I use Microsoft and Google Suite, but I'll say it now. I hate Google Mail. I don't know why. Yeah, I know there's so much functionality in it.
Yeah.
That gives me like the old FOMO, but at the same time, I just hate the layout of it. I hate the look of it. I hate that it's online based or desktop. Online based. I know that you could probably get an app for it, but it probably wouldn't be as good.
No.
But yeah, no, not Google, not Google Mail, please. Right, let's move on. Okay, I'm going to skip question 4 because I'm dropping that one for the listeners that have been here before. I'm going to drop question 4 because it just causes so much. It causes so much confusion. I'm going to tell you what it is, and you can perhaps answer it, and then you can be the last one, Mel.
Oh,
all right?
Go on.
Okay, so bear in mind this is a lack of or a want of rather than this is a need of rather than a lack of, I think, is the correct terms.
Okay.
So if you're stranded on a desert island, what app could you not live without?
Oh, I mean, I'll probably be on a desert island trying to find water, not my phone.
Well, this is the problem with the question, isn't it? I mean, in the past we've had conversations about the helicopter that dropped you off and how far you jump out of the helicopter and how deep into the water you go. Will your phone survive that waterproof levelness? And then
that's a tricky
we've
question.
had they've had oh, I want YouTube. I'm like, well, that's a great answer, but how are you going to watch it? It's like, well, I don't know. And then like people said, I'm looking for water, I'm looking for fish, I'm looking for workout gear. So I think the actual point of the question was, it's like, what's your favourite app? And, how can you not live without it? And perhaps I will bring it back and rephrase that question in the next episode.
There you go. Good idea.
But yeah, so perhaps answer that one then. What's your favourite app? What app can you not live without, and you absolutely love it? And we know it's not Instagram.
Oh God, I think for business it's Slack, because that just is my communication. I try my best to stay out of email, get sucked into your inbox, and then that's just a time suck. And I think personally, I do like a bit of Instagram for, as I said, like discover and find, not for posting content, but for absorbing it, because that's where I get all my like slow cooker recipes and, nail inspiration ideas and all that nonsense that we do. So like, I do use Instagram, switch my brain off. So I think those two.
Instagram is good for research. That's what I call it. Yeah, I'm just researching the latest trends and researching the latest trending audio and
exactly.
And stuff like that. Like, no, I haven't been sat here on my phone for 3 hours, darling, just scrolling Instagram.
No.
Right, question 5. The joys of being a business owner, eh? Right, question 5. How many try that again. Question 5. How many unread emails do you have on your phone right now?
Oh, I could tell you. Give us 1 second, caller. Hold on. I have 7.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Because that's just since we've been recording. And mostly that's newsletters and stuff. Nothing that's like client-based. So, no. I'm not at 10,000 unread.
Those people are crazy, aren't they?
Hate it. It makes me physically tick when I see someone's phone and I side-eye it slowly as they're texting, or they open their screen and you see all these red notifications. And then you look closer and it's like 9,051 unread emails. And I'm like, I'm starting to itch. Like, I have to sort it. And they're like, it's fine. I'm like, we live our life very differently. I can't deal with that.
Here's a good one for you. I was out to breakfast a few weeks ago. And I was sat next to my friend who had an iPhone, but he's a bit older than me, and he can't see so great anymore. So he's got the big large text setting, and I was like, ugh, what is that? But then I saw the text messages, and he had like 46 unread text messages.
No, I know people in my life, the same on WhatsApp. They have like 30 unread, and I'm like, what's happening? They'll be the ones that you'll message them, they will read it, and then they'll go back to doing something else because they don't have time to respond. And then 4 days later, you'll message them again but you read it, why haven't you responded? And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And that's all you get. And then they're painful sometimes to communicate with.
I like to think that perhaps that's how he deals with his to-do list, and he's like unread them or something, so he knows he has to go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be sensible. Probably not though.
That's not it, is it?
No.
You're upsetting me, Mel. You're upsetting me. Right. Okay. Question 5. This also might have to be rephrased as episodes go on, because it may not be suitable. But we're going to ask it anyway. So, if you could have any car, doesn't matter about the insurance, the price of buying it, the tyres, the maintenance costs, any of that. What car are you having in the drive?
We've just been having this conversation with my boyfriend this morning. He's BMW lover, so he'd love me to say something model of BMW. But I just want little Audi A1 S-Line. That's my dream car.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Just simple, 4 doors. There's a child and a dog in my life, and shopping. I would like 4 doors. 4-door Audi S1. A1S line. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Nice, simple, elegant as well.
I mean, what am I going to say? A Lamborghini Gallardo or something for everyday transport to Tesco's and back?
Yeah. Ferrari F40. Ferrari Testarossa, isn't it? With Tom Selleck optional.
Yeah.
All right, that is the quickfire questions. So thanks for that. And interestingly, though, I've just got an extra one that isn't actually official, but it just reminded me with you looking at your phone. iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone. I've been Mac everything for way too long. Just got introduced to it when I was like 18. I was like, oh, this is great. So yeah, I'm iPhone, Apple all the way.
Oh, is that the same with the computers and the laptop and everything as well?
Yeah, so my laptop's Mac, and my desktop and everything is now like a Mac Mini and just an HP screen, and it's brilliant. It's so quick, does the job. Not to hate on PCs, but I just prefer the user interface and all that.
In your early days of VA work then, how did you find being a Mac user when some of your clients will have used Windows? Did you find that there was problems with it?
It wasn't too bad because obviously from corporate I'd used Windows and Microsoft Office and everything, so it wasn't difficult, and it's still not. Like, the team use whatever the client uses, but no, I was always like, can we just scoot you across to like the G Suite world? No, okay. So I tried, but it's fine.
Yeah,
totally fine.
I suppose G Suite is a like a door opener, because for Microsoft you can have issues. I know they say that there isn't any issues between Windows versions and Mac versions, but there is. The colours are different.
Yeah.
The colour palette's definitely different. There's definitely a difference in those. And, the files, they sometimes move words. I swear to you they do. So when I had to get a new laptop, I went Windows because, all my clients had Windows. So I thought, well, yeah, and I was using an iMac previously. And obviously access to programs and stuff was different. But yeah, the G Suite could be the gateway to the Mac and Windows world, because obviously it works both fine, no issues.
You'd be surprised. I think 70 to 80% of my clients use G Suite. That's their world, even for massive organizations, especially like the tech startups or the savvy ones. The majority of those younger businesses, they tend to use Google. So, yeah, it makes sense.
I like it. Right. Let's get back on with the show then. So, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah. So I got a little podcast called Delegate Like a CEO, which has changed. Last year it was Confessions of a CEO, because it was towards being a service provider, becoming a service provider, and I was sort of very heavily into business coaching at that time. And then this year, obviously, the focus is on the agency. And I was like, what do I do with the podcast? And I had a great call with a podcast strategist. And she was like, well, it needs to be a marketing tool for your agency. So you need to really think about how to best do that and how to kind of advertise your services whilst also being storytelling and fun and informative. And I was like, great, no pressure. But it's been working out really well. Season 3 of the podcast is all about the things that we do for clients. Like, there are episodes like 3 ways a busy mom and CEO can use a lifestyle VA. Because there's so much that we do that if you can illustrate it, people can understand it and see themselves in it. And so like tangible real life examples and client case studies are doing really well for us at the moment. So yeah, it's been, I love doing it. It is a labour of love, but it is, even with a small listenership, it's getting leads and getting people really invested in our services. And it also serves as a tool to be like, here's an episode about what to expect with your first month with a VA. And so it's really just a useful tool at the moment.
Yeah, I like it. So that makes me think of two things. One is that the whole how can a VA be used thing. And then the other is, I've forgotten the other. But what I've found in the past is, I'll come back to it. It'll come back eventually. Yeah. Probably at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, which won't be really good because we won't be on the call then. Well, hopefully not. Anyway, that would be our longest episode to date. But yeah, I mean, I've had inquiries and they've been like, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to say what I do.
Yeah.
And I say, well, you know your business. You know what you don't like doing. Talk to me about that, and then we'll go from there. Is my usual response.
Yeah.
And you're probably like, oh my god, what a rookie.
No, it's normal. That's normal.
But yeah, I mean, I've had people been like, what, especially at networking, which is probably one of the reasons that they're doing it.
Oh,
So,
the elevator pitch at networking gives me the cringies because it's so hard to say. Like, someone's going, so what do you do? And I hate that question. I genuinely am like, I hate that question. Instead of like, tell me something fun about yourself and your business, it's like, what do you do? And you're supposed to come out with this succinct line or 2 lines about what it is you do when you're on the spot. And I find that, I'm an introvert, and I find that the hardest thing sometimes. Like, so many things.
I do too, and I've recently got it down. I mean, doing this podcasting thing has improved my speaking. I think it's improved my thinking about my business and how I'm going forward and stuff. Though that might be the amount of daily supplements I'm taking. All legal, I might add.
Okay.
Though apparently the GP did not know what lion's mane was, and he'd certainly never heard of Space Goods drinks. Rainbow dust. He thought that was like magic mushrooms. But so yeah, mine is essentially what's mine? Essentially, I do the everyday paperwork for sole consultants and sole directors. That's I used to say I do the shit that you don't want to do, but that kind of got like a bit of some people would pull a face at that. In fact, I was at an event in July, and someone said, "So what do you do?" I was like, "I just do the shit other people don't want to do," and she was like, "Oh," and she was actually an EA, actually she said, "Oh, well, I'm a executive assistant, freelance executive assistant." That's what she said. I don't go with the whole VA term, which I don't go with the whole VA term. I go with I throw it in occasionally so that it gives that bridge of people then go, "Oh yeah, VA, I've heard of that," rather than freelance admin or whatever.
Yeah.
So. Back to don't get me started on networking either, because I'm an introvert too. Surprisingly, I don't know why I decided to do a podcast because especially ones with like guests. But I couldn't sit there and do like what you do. I think this was my second point. And like you do mostly solo, don't you, for your podcast?
Yeah, I did a lot of guests in the beginning, which is really good. But then, as someone pointed out, his podcast strategist, it's not really showing off what I do and how we do it, and like my strengths or my expertise. And I was like. So I was hiding behind people a lot in the beginning because I didn't really know what to say. And I was like, other people have way more interesting voices, stories and businesses. I'll interview them. And it kind of isn't the strategy, obviously, to promote your own business. So fair point.
Yeah, I mean, that's why mine is more conversational, hopefully, than interview style. That's how I like to think of it. Of course, I'm just hiding behind my guest. Don't tell them all, though. You've just given it all away, Mel. So yeah, I find it really interesting that you do a lot of solo episodes. I mean, for me, I wanted to start a podcast back in July 2020.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. It's going to be fantastic. No one else was doing it at the time. And of course, now everyone's got one. Case in point. But in fact, I'll come back to the podcasting in a second. On my TikTok, I put, it's 2024. Of course, I've got one. I'm hoping that the implication is people might think I've got an OnlyFans and they might click my link.
That's one way to go about it.
Of course, they're probably not going to, but there you go. Anyway, right, so back to 2020. So there I am thinking, I've got my iPad. I bought like a little microphone, only a lavalier one, not a proper full-on talky one. It was a condenser one though, and I've downloaded Anchor, and I sit there with my microphone on, and I look at my iPad, and my iPad looks at me, and I look at it, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing this on. And to be fair, I wasn't even self-employed at that point. I was still working, and this was still the side hustle. But we were in lockdown, and I was doing a lot of, attending events and stuff like that. And I was just like, what am I going to do it on? And then it took me like 4 years of then getting, buried in my business, working in people's businesses for them while they work on their business, and working in theirs instead of on mine. And
standard
facts, people.
Standard.
And then obviously I kind of, there is a story about how I started it, but the want was always there, and a few people have been inspirational for it. And then, but I tell you, the hardest one I've done, your episode 18. I can't remember if I've said that in the show or not before, but the hardest thing I had to do was my trailer.
Yeah,
where I was sat on my own, and I was just looking at myself on Riverside, like. Speak, and yeah. I'd even uploaded into the teleprompter, but the problem I found with that was it then makes the screen like opaque, and then it puts the words up, and then you can set the time, and I couldn't get the time right straight away. So first it was too slow, then it was too fast. And then I couldn't see my face, so all I could see was the words, and I was just like reading, like I was basically like,
oh yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? Yeah, because you're reading a line, and you can see your eyeballs going if the page that you're reading from is too what? Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, that's awful. I'm going to write down a couple of points on this piece of paper, and then I'm going to work it out from there. I'm just going to ad lib it because that's natural. And I was like, here we go. And I spent the whole time like this, looking down at the screen for those listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, looking down at the table. Sorry, and I was just like, and eventually, actually, I didn't know how Spotify had worked because my podcast episodes weren't live until Monday just gone.
Yeah.
So I wanted to launch 3 at a time and then release weekly. But I was building up a bank, as you can probably tell. 3 episodes were launched. Your episode 18. What's going on here? That's quick maths for you there. But I was like, how do I upload it? Does it take the video file from this is from Riverside?
Oh yeah.
Does it take the video file? Does it take the audio file? What does it do? So it's like,
complicated.
Yeah, I scheduled one, and I was like, well, I don't want to make that one live yet because that's an actual episode. So I was like, I'll just do a quick trailer. Won't even finish it off. Won't put the intro on. Won't put the outro on. Won't even put the clip in of my friend telling me that I need to start a podcast. I'll just upload it and see what happens. I can just delete it afterwards. So I upload it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how it works. It takes the video file, and for Spotify, you can use it on video or you can use it on audio. And then for everyone else, it just shoots out the audio file. I was like, pretty cool. Then I was like, right, I've seen how it works. I know how it works. I've got a better idea. Delete. It's like, you cannot delete this unless you publish another episode. And I was like, oh, no. And this was like quarter to 10. And I had a call with someone at 10 o'clock. I think it was a call with a client at 10 o'clock. And so I was like, oh. Painful. I was like, no, I've got to get ready for my call. So I just left it. Luckily, I hadn't launched, so no one was going to find it. But then I obviously had to rush to replace it just in case someone did find it, like someone had been waiting for this trailer. So yeah, my trailer is awful and one of the hardest things I've done. 18 episodes of talking to complete strangers as well as friends. And here I am, and there I was, like, worst episode was just me talking to myself.
It's the hardest thing, yeah.
So
it's not easy.
Kudos to you for doing the solo episodes of your podcast.
I script them, folks, I script them. So they're pretty much written in advance, and they have the same structure every single time that I was taught by a really good strategist only this year. And that just makes it easier. And so then I just put the text that I've written on the screen. I kind of pull it in front of my face, and it's as close up to the camera as I can. And then I just sort of silently, like, look down every now and then to scroll my mouse up without the clicking sound. And then I just read it and ad lib on bits and bobs. But it's scripted so that I don't have that feeling of like, what am I going to say? Or my brain's a bit dead today, or am I just waffling? So the majority of it is like 90% of it is scripted, which also in itself is the work that you have to do before the episode. So it's not easy, but it's kind of, I don't know about you, it's a fun creative outlet as well. Like I actually genuinely enjoy doing it. Sometimes I'm like, no, I've got so many things to do this week. This is the last thing I need to do. And if I'm not prepped in advance for stuff, I get a bit stressed by it, but I do really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed recording it, the different people I've spoken to and stuff like that, and then I like playing with the bits in Riverside, like making the mini clips. And what I thought was going to be really popular was like the funny clips that, you know, the kind of nearly outtakes.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they're going to be fantastic. It's like one episode, someone was telling me about their quote, and it was something their mum had always said to them. And I said, oh, that's a brilliant quote. She said, yeah, thanks, Mum. And I went, you're welcome. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not your mum. And so I clipped that as a magic clip, and then I posted it on social thinking this is going to go viral. And I had like 3 likes and like 50 views.
Yeah,
and I was like, what? And then I've done a few of the intros, like, you know, oh, great chatting to Mel today, the lifestyle VA. And I've, you know, collaborated with them on Insta so that it goes on both pages. Put a little bit of trending audio behind really low in the background. And essentially you get the old, you know, the welcome to Rad-Ventures bit, tell us a bit about yourself. And so I posted like loads of those, and they're like, you know, 300 likes, well, not 300 likes, sorry, 300 views, 10, 20, 30 likes. And I'm like, but my funny one with the, I'm not your mum.
No, yeah. It's so subjective, I guess. I don't know, it's who knows how it works. It's a mess.
It is, it's magic. It's like, you know.
Yeah, literally.
Oh,
dog
magic.
arts. Yeah, dog arts.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a man with a voodoo doll somewhere. What's his name?
Not.
Adam Masori. Maybe that's how he does it. Like with a cauldron and like pentagrams and stuff. Rabbit's bones. That's how the algorithm works. You heard it here first on the Rad-Ventures podcast. See, I could do that as a mini clip, but it wouldn't. People would just be like, what is he going on about? He's a weirdo.
Yeah. Subjective.
I mean, hold my hands up. I confess I probably am a weirdo. But there you go. Anyway,
but
right.
That's your thing. That's your people will find you. You've got to be yourself.
My people will find me. I think it's charming and charismatic, but, you know, some
Absolutely.
people might not. Okay. So how many episodes have you done of the podcast then?
I'm on 63 this week. What's this week's? This week's episode, which will be a while ago by the time this comes out, is AI versus VA. So that's a fun one.
An interesting subject.
Yeah. So, you know, basically along the lines of, is automations and AI is going to negate the need for VAs? And I firmly disagree, but it's all about how we use automations and AI in the business for our clients, like day-to-day examples. So I think people will sit there with a notepad going, I'm going to check this one out. That sounds really good, because it's all about time saving. So VAs can actually do the human meaty stuff that needs the nuance and the common sense and the judgment calls, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. My view on it is that, you know, they won't get replaced, or AI won't replace, because it's not clever enough, as it were.
No.
But you can utilise it to make things better for the end clients.
100%.
I think you've just put me onto Zapier. Through your threads. I was like, Zaps? What are these Zaps?
Oh, magic.
And so now I'm like, I've got to find a Zap to work. And I was looking through like some of the ones to work with the systems I have. Like I use Moxie.
Yeah.
And I use Free Agent to my discredit, I think, as my accounting software. But they don't integrate. Moxie have tried. Free Agent apparently don't have the right stuff. As I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, I'm going to find a Zap to make these work, but I don't think the Zaps work. I don't think.
Do you know what? It's a bit fiddly. You get the hang of creating Zaps, but they've got in Zapier now. They've got a little AI beta that they're testing where, if you go to create a Zap on the left-hand side, you can actually type in to their beta AI what you want it to do, like connect Moxie to Free Agent. So if I, you know, sign a new client, raise invoice in Free Agent, or create client in Free Agent, then subtask raise invoice or something, it will give you the little steps and then draft it for you, and you just check it. So it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's so useful for all those like repetitive tiny tasks that you have to do, especially for client onboarding and offboarding.
Yeah, I think the problem is that Free Agent doesn't have the API key for creating an invoice.
Yeah.
Which was, as I understand it, you would need with the Zap to be able to do that. Otherwise, essentially, Moxie could just use Zapier to set that up, or their own version. I think that's the cause of it. But as previously stated, nothing's fact checked on Rad-Ventures. So.
We were talking about Threads earlier. Just literally start talking about Zapier on Threads, and then you'll get everybody sharing their Zaps, and that's how I found some really, really good ones. Yeah, I've saved a bunch in my Threads account, and then I've gone in when I've had time into Zapier and like try to recreate them, and it's really, really handy.
I think I read on Threads that one of your favourites was you get Slack to make a noise. Somehow,
I've got a little good news robot. I commented on someone's post this week. Yeah, so someone said that they had set it up so that they get notified when someone signs a contract or books a discovery call. And I was like, I've got a little good news robot, 'cause you can make it like with you can call it whatever you want, and I've got like emojis, dancing emojis and disco balls one side of it, and it's like literally got a message that sounds like me going, yay, whatever you want to call yourself, you've just got a new discovery call, go you, or go celebrate, or remind yourself to do something good today 'cause something good is happening. Or like, it's one of those little things that I send myself, and I get a like Slack bot come up, and I'm like, oh, so I don't have to be in my inbox either, constantly checking it. Slack will give me that little notification that someone's booked a discovery call, and I just go, oh, do a little shoulder shimmy, because I'm like, that's exciting. Because otherwise you forget to be happy about all of these things that happen in business when you're just like busy all the time. So you've got to have a moment.
Yeah, so. I absolutely love that. I'm going to go about seeing and setting one of those up for myself. I don't know what you use for your kind of everyday project planning. But I used to use Asana before I swapped to Moxie. And Asana, when you completed a task, either a narwhal or a unicorn used to pop up across the screen with like a little rainbow. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, I've completed a task. You don't get that in Moxie. So, yeah, Jeff, if you could sort that out for us. Otherwise, I'm going to have to set my own Zap up.
And I would like flying unicorns, please. Yeah.
Yeah, flying unicorns or... narwhal or like a little dolphin or something, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bird even, you know?
Yeah, happy bird.
Any of those would be fantastic. All right, so back to the show then. Let me just remember what the question is. It's okay. So we know what you've started off doing. We know what you transitioned to. We know how you've built this 6-figure VA agency. Kudos to you there too.
Thank you.
But if you could do anything, and this is the question, if you could do anything, if and when you grow up, growing up is obviously not necessary, what would you do?
I always thought I wanted to be a travel writer. So I'd need to be single and unattached and, all of that to do that. And I wouldn't change that for the world now. But if I were, 10 years younger and you'd ask me that question, I'd be like, I want to be a travel writer. So I'd go around taking great photos and doing all these lovely reviews of all these amazing places in the world and getting loads of free travel and just having those experiences. That would 100% be me.
I like it. That sounds really good. And, a couple of cameras for video and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of time on Instagram, though.
That would be the downside. Hence why probably not the goal, the dream now. I think I'd probably just want to be a zookeeper still or something now.
Yeah. It must be quite nice doing like certain bits of zookeeping.
Yeah.
Some of it must be alright. Some of it perhaps not. But that sounds like a nice aspiration to have.
Yeah.
Okay, doke. So if we start thinking about wrapping up, then Mel, so tell everyone where they can find you. Don't forget to include your podcast name, links, etc.
Yeah, I'll give you everything in the show notes. The podcast is Delegate Like a CEO. You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. I have an email list. You can sign up on my website, thelifestyleva.net. And I hang out on Threads, which is at thelifestyleva_agency. And it's the same tagline for Instagram as well. So you can find me, say hello. And if you're a new VA and want to chat as well, I'm always open to, helping people figure out their path as well.
Perfect. Cool. So it sounds like you've had quite the rad venture, Mel. I've not said that for like 15 episodes. I did it the first 2 and I forgot about it. But obviously I've had to review them to get them out. And then I was like, oh yeah, that was like the whole part of the show. that I completely forgot about in my excitement. So, yeah, there you go. Fantastic Rad-Venture. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Pleasure.
for listeners and watchers. And we'll be back next week with a new guest. Okay, so peace out. Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs. And I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture.